how formal / informal. So this is, I like playing the script and stuff. So if you get bored, just ask me questions and then like we can get off script. Make sure I hit like the most important points. So, okay. I'm excited to talk to you all about all things in between. Specifically how you can use Tween Advisory Councils to create successful programs. So yeah, like Diana said, feel free to ask questions as we go. I want it to be like a dialogue back and forth. I'm definitely going to be asking you guys for ways that you gather Tween input, because like for all of us, it's like a learning process. I learn more every year, every person that I talk to. So here is a brief outline of the things that I'll just kind of be walking through today. Foundational philosophy, because like I'm all about this. I feel like if we don't start at the same point, then like it's really hard to like implement these programs in libraries or whatever organization that you're in if there's not buy-in from like your boss or like the director. So I just want to talk about that and then talk about a little bit of an overview of the Meridian Library Tween Advisory Council, and then kind of like diving into like the nuts and bolts, like how to form one, how to structure a year of activities using like the community-led libraries model and philosophy, and then how to communicate throughout the year. That's something that I'm also always learning, so I'm going to be asking for your feedback on that one too. And then methods of evaluation, like ways that we have the tweens kind of evaluate the program themselves. So, okay, here we go. Into the philosophy. Okay, I wanted to take a step back, like I said, talking about the philosophy behind the council, and really the philosophy behind youth services at all of the Meridian Library District. Here at Meridian, we believe that children have a voice that's valuable and deserving to be listened to, and that we as staff are to be those listeners and advocates, amplifying and bringing to life their visions for what the library can be. This is the guiding philosophy that many of the early children's librarians had in the 1900s, and it's the guiding philosophy that kind of underpins all that we do here. So recently in the profession, any of you guys that have been to library school or listened to like anything library related lately may have seen this phrase. It's been given the label community-led libraries, and it's been articulated and made famous by these two gentlemen, John Pateman and Ken Willamette, in their book, Developing Community-Led Public Libraries. It's from the UK and Canada. Their book describes a service model that includes the community every step of the way. So just to look through this, so on the top is like the traditional model, and then underneath is kind of the community-led model. And I'll give you like a second to kind of like read over that. Yeah, a second. So yeah, and also if you're not from a library, I think like the same concepts can apply. It's still you're building relationships with the community. You're listening. You have like the people who aren't, you know, your staff who are basically leading and guiding these programs. And it kind of is both ways. So.
I was thinking if you and Brian end up having a house full of riches down there.
Does anyone have any questions about that?
Meeting?
Yes. Well, just a webinar meeting.
Okay. All right. I wasn't sure if that was a question or what, but we'll keep going. Okay. Okay, no questions, we'll keep going. So I know for like a lot of people, when I've talked about this before, they're like, wait, so like you ask the kids for their opinions? You're like, this is a good thing. And it's like a huge philosophical shift. And I think it was for our department as well initially, like a total 180, but it keeps you nimble, it keeps you flexible. But I think it's also hard because we've had this in teens as well, where it's because you're not, I mean, you will sit down and plan programs for a long time, like you will do that as a staff, but like it may not look the same. So people who are used to the traditional model will be like, well, they're just coming up with like random stuff on the fly, and you're like, well, no, like this is big thing. So like don't give up if you try this. So yeah, it's definitely worth the growing pains because you'll be fostering a sense of ownership in the kids that you serve. Okay, so once you've decided to adopt this service model or philosophy, you can start big, like formal, or you can be as informal as you want with your after-school program. So thinking informally, it can be something as simple as like asking the kids that you interact with on a daily basis whether they'd like to do a Harry Potter party, or doing something with like smaller sticky note, or like using a whiteboard, you know, where you have a question up and you're like, would you like to do this? Or what are your thoughts on blank? And just having them, you know, getting those informal methods of communication. So this is when we opened our pop-up tween space, March 1st. So almost 2 years ago, 1 year ago. I can't remember. It's all a blur. But so those, if you kind of like look at the two walls on either, can you see my mouse?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay, so yeah, so there's one here and one here on our opening day, and then for several weeks after, and we still do this, just like having giant signs up like that with sticky notes where we ask them. The one was what rules or expectations should be set for the in-between, so they're actively involved in coming up with, standards for behavior for themselves. And so we can be like, hey guys, remember you said this is a good way to behave. And then on the right was the one, how would you like to spend your time after school in the in-between? And this is an example from Seattle Public Library. I really like, this is just a display, but I thought it was a good way, like they just used the concept of New Year's, this year I will blank. So you kind of get an insight into what their goals are. And then I think you can also get some program ideas from that. So that would be just like an informal way of doing that. Okay, so more formal ways. What you all may be tuned in for, what I said I'd talk about, Tween Advisory Councils. Okay, so let's move into Tween Advisory Councils. And I just want to give you a bit of an overview of the one that I started at Meridian a couple of years ago. So it was started in January 2016. When I started the library in the spring of 2015, I noticed that there was a gap in services to school-age children, specifically ages 8 to 12, the tween age. More than half of our programming for youth ages 0 to 18 was targeted towards the 0 to 5 age range, and our physical spaces also reflected this emphasis on the 5-year-olds or 0 to 5-year-old age range, with small tables and chairs, technology, and decorations that were definitely designed with the younger audience in mind. And some of you guys might have the same thing in your settings too. So I wanted to create, rewind. Okay, so I had heard about other innovative tween programming and tween spaces that was happening. This is from Sweden. It's their tween only library, and it's an article from School Library Journal. So if you have a chance, look that one up. I think the name of it is Tio Trettorn, T-I-O, and then new word Trettorn. And it's like the coolest, like the philosophy is exactly the same, and the whole concept of the place is amazing. So I wanted to create a space that was similar, but I wanted to make sure that was like a real need in this community and not just an idea that me as an adult wanted to start. So that's why I decided to form the Tween Advisory Council, but then also to get feedback for not just the space, but also like programs, and then give them a forum for their voices to be heard. Okay, so since forming, does anyone have questions? Like, again, type in if you have any more about like the space in Sweden too. I'm happy to share. For this space, at least, they only let tweens in, which is quite interesting. So since forming in 2016, this group and each new yearly cohort has planned massive Harry Potter parties and smaller monthly tween programs. Paige, that was the one picture on the top left. We definitely did that one with Anne's help when she worked for our library. And then we go on annual, and then we also do monthly tween programs. So top right, there's a monthly tween program called Nerd Nation. We kind of come up with the concepts, or the different themes. So this 80s party, we watch an 80s movie, different activities. They opened the library's tween space. So that's the group on the top left that did that. Go on annual shopping spree to Barnes & Noble, top left, or top right, to add unique and traditional items to the collection. And so those are just an example of the bottom picture, some of the stuff they've added to like robots, and then a Harry Potter kit. And then go on special field trips to thank summer reading sponsors, and to see authors when they come to Boise to visit. So that's Brandon Mall in the top right. The kids were super pumped for that one. We've advised the Idaho Media Initiative on tween summer camp lesson plans that we're working on. The kids have served as library ambassadors when we had elected officials reading to kids at our summer reading kickoff celebration in the park, and they've organized the library at the Boys and Girls Club, so that's in the bottom right. So they're like active, not just in the library, but like outside of the library in the community. And something that was helpful for that, I don't have this in my presentation, but you're probably thinking logistics maybe, but like we have a library vehicle, and then the kids all had to sign their parents had to sign like a liability form that's saying they're not going to sue the library. So footnote, you'll probably need one of those if you want to take the kids on field trips and stuff. Okay, They're an idea generation powerhouse. These kids are awesome. They're our go-to volunteers when we need last-minute reinforcements because we know we can count on them. And there are many library advocates who aren't afraid to share their love for the library with everyone that they know. So that's just a quick overview of the Tween Advisory Council and a snapshot of some of the things that we've done. So I'm going to dive into the nuts and bolts, like logistics, hands-on information, in case you guys are thinking this is something that you'd like to get started. And hopefully you'll be given some practical tools that you can use right away. So I'll talk about how the group was formed, how to structure a year of activities, how to communicate throughout the year, and different methods of evaluating Tween Advisory Councils. So, okay, how the group was formed. I wanted to bring in kids who were passionate about library services and who were also visionaries. They didn't necessarily have to be like super users, but I wanted them to have like big ideas for what the library could be, because at least at Meridian Library, we are always kind of like pushing the boundaries for what libraries can be in the community. So I wanted to have kids from all over. When I created the online application, I was sure to include questions that gave me a glimpse into how each kid thought. So like questions like, what would your dream library look like? And the answers that I got back, they were hilarious. Like I just laughed out loud because I couldn't believe how awesome these kids were and how out there they were thinking, but in a good way. Like one girl wanted a telescope across the road. And I mean, maybe we can't do that, but like different elements of that we can do. Let's see here. I was also careful in the wording that I chose. So I wanted the kids to feel special, like they were an elite group of tweens who really and truly make decisions about the library. Like I didn't want it to be just lip service. I wanted it to be something, special. So I made sure that was reflected in the language that I use. So this, oh shoot, that's kind of tiny. That's okay. I'll show you a big version in just 1 second. Okay, so I'm going to switch screens. This should be a link. Oops, yes, that's right. Okay, so this is, I used a Google form. It was an online application. It's really easy to do, just with an intro. I mean, this got shared on our website. It was like a scrolling banner, and I'll talk about that, the whole marketing thing, in a minute. But in case you're looking for like questions, what I did was I basically scoured all sorts of different tween advisory and like youth advisory groups. So like the Meridian Youth Advisory Council was a big one, and I looked at their questions. So for obviously the main questions, first name, last name, address, phone number, and like pause me if you have any questions. I talk fast, but parent guardian name and something, obviously emergency contact. I wanted them to commit, because I know sometimes with advisory councils, it can be like, well, maybe not, but in order for them to like take it seriously, their role, like, because I want to take their role seriously in the library, and I wanted them to also feel like that was a priority for them. So I asked if they were willing to commit to coming to meetings. And I know sometimes, you know, they have like tuba practice randomly or something, so they have to go to that, and that's okay. But I just asked that they email me and keep communication open. Tell us a bit about yourself, hobbies, interests. Why do you want to be a member? The most important skill or attribute that you bring, your all-time favorite book, movie, app, or video game. And so again, that was a place where I wanted to make sure it wasn't just book, because I didn't want just like the book kind of kids. And again, this can apply to like whatever organization that you're a part of. If kind of bringing in the language of your organization's goals and mission to kind of get those answers. Anyway, and then what would your dream library look like? And then any questions or comments below. So has everybody seen that enough? Thumbs up? Yeah? Okay, great. I'll go back to the slideshow. Okay. Okay, so then with those questions in place, the next thing that I had to think about, it's kind of weird because like I feel like you just do this and you don't really think like, what did I do? Step 1, step 2, but like preparing for this webinar definitely made me be like, oh yeah, okay, this was a process. Okay, so the next thing that I thought about was how to market the program. So I wanted to, like I said, who were super users, but also tweens who had awesome ideas and maybe like didn't use the library all that often. So this was kind of like the handout that I use. I know there's a lot of like text on there, but our marketing ladies, like, because it's a new program and like nobody knows what it is, you kind of need to explain what it is on little handouts that, so there was quarter sheets that I handed out. But yeah, I was sure to highlight like technology language and like non-traditional library items within that text. So I did a mix of print and online advertising. And for the first year, I went to the different elementary and middle schools, boys and girls clubs, YMCA after school program sites in order to talk about the program and give information. So yeah, like I was just saying, I realize this isn't maybe necessarily like your setting. So if you're not a library, the kids like you work with maybe like stuck with you kind of thing. But I think like the same concept can apply across settings. Like you need to find a unique way to like have a hook for the kids that you work with to make it exciting. So I think I put on here today. Oh yeah, get your hands on new books before anyone else. So in the library world, you guys know, like these are advanced reader copies, and like this is like big for like library super users and like super nerds. Like they want to get the books before anybody else does. So I'm sure to like emphasize that part. And I also mentioned food because that's like one of the things that like all tweens love. And we do. This is one of the things, our programs that does have a higher budget, and I justify it because they're actively contributing, so we get a higher budget for pizza.
I will, just to interject, with our focus groups of tween users, food came up in every single group. Snacks are highly motivating, FYI, to anyone working with tweens. All of them want snacks. Girls and boys, didn't matter.
On the board that we had in like the tween space, it's like, what do you want to see in the after school like tween space? It was like food. Like almost every single sticky note was like food, pizza, lollipop, like anything.
Food and comfy seating. That's like the other thing that,
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. I didn't even like think about that, Diane, or like write that down. But like, yeah, making it like a comfy atmosphere, if that's like, you know, the vibe that you want to go for with your tween advisory. Just thinking about that, like room layout and room setup, because I think that makes a difference for how they approach different things too. So it's something to think about. Okay. So where was I? Oh yeah. Okay. Another word about like marketing. So a big draw for the kids and especially the parents around here in certain areas of Meridian is like, they love the fact that this was an exclusive group. So it's like only 12 kids in all of Meridian. They're like, my kid's so special. And I know that sounds hoity-toity, I guess, a bit, maybe. But I had tried, my second year, I did try a bigger group of like 20 kids, and that's really hard to do. There are different ways that you probably could do it, but so I keep it at 12, so it's manageable. And then also the parents and the kids like the community that it creates, but then also that their kids are kind of part of this special group that contributes to the library. So 3 years later, we're at a point we don't have to do all of that like on the ground marketing. Like when the new year rolls around, it's just a banner that goes up on the website. A lot of the kids tell their friends. A lot of younger siblings kind of move in as the older siblings move out. So it's kind of neat to see. But yeah, like again, all that legwork is necessary at the beginning so people know about your program and that they know, so that your program is a success. Okay. Does anyone have questions kind of about like the marketing, or has anyone like done any programs like this and found good ways to like market, share their ideas?
I have a question of how many kids do you usually get applying, and how do you turn down kids?
Yeah, that's the worst.
I bet. It's the worst. It would be easy if it was like 12 kids applied and you took all 12. But, you know.
So this past year, I had at least 20 kids apply. And I knew because the year before I took all like 20 kids I took them all. And I had to have another staff member that came in and helped, and we split up the group, and it was just really hard for activities. So I wasn't going to do that again. So I had to weigh in whether or not they'd been on the council before, kind of their leadership potential. That sounds awful, but and then so some of the kids, what I did, I tried to be creative in this one. There were 2 kids that they could have rolled off. Well, I also took age into account. So if they're going to turn 13 and can move up to our Tween Advisory Council, then I would just say, hey, like, we're really full, or I did say that, consider our Teen Advisory Council. But yeah, you have to word those emails really carefully. But something that I did do this year is there were two girls who have hardcore leadership potential, and they did not want to move up to the Teen Advisory Council because they love the Tween Advisory Council so much. and they like the past year, they always helped me clean up stuff, and they were great leaders of like facilitating conversations and stuff. So I asked them to stay on as senior leaders. So I kind of like did a little workaround so I didn't have to say no to them. But yeah, so they come early and they help me set up. So like it's kind of a learning process, and no year so far has looked the same. So but thank goodness it didn't look like last year. Yeah, did that answer your question? Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Did anyone else have? I saw a couple people unmute, so I didn't know if I accidentally ran over somebody.
Yeah, it's hard. You don't want to say no to kids, like, and especially ones that like love your organization and are like passionate about everything you do. Like, oh, it's the worst. But yeah, coming up with alternatives or making sure that like an alternative exists, like in your organization that they can go to. That's softens the blow a bit. Okay, this is moving on to the big part, how to structure a year of activities. And you're probably going to be like, Sky, this isn't what I wanted. I just wanted like a list of a whole bunch of activities, but that's not the point. The point is, like you need to take the kids that you bring together and the two of you kind of collaborate and come up with activities. So I'm going to kind of talk about the process that we use to get there. Yeah, so don't panic. Like I did when I first got the whole group together. I'm like, okay, crap. Like I have a whole year of activities I'm supposed to plan. Like, what am I going to do? And then like, okay, we got the kids. It's fine. Just go with your philosophy, Sky. So yeah, you guys are together going to make a yearly outline of activities that's going to be better than like one that either you or them as a group would have made. So during our second Tween Advisory Council meeting. So the first one we had was like more of a meet and greet, kind of like get to know you, intro, mixer party, obviously with pizza and snacks. So the second one, we map out ideas for our year together. So I have like key kind of competency areas that I want to make sure that at the end of their year that they hit all of those areas. So, and I took them from the Association for Library Services to Children's competencies for serving children in libraries. So just so everyone knows, those competencies are for like library staff serving kids, but some of the things are like actually applicable. They're kind of like, I was able to like adapt them and pull them and make kind of like a broad organizational like map in my mind of the different areas that I wanted the kids to kind of hit. So, but if you work in another youth focused organization, maybe your organization or your like broader profession has kind of like skills that like all these kids need to acquire or whatever. And you can use that as kind of like your roadmap. Okay, so for us, the major areas that I want the kids to have experience in when they're done their year on the council are programming, collections, reference and readers advisory, so like helping people find what they need, and then outreach and advocacy. And you can like add your own competency areas to that. So I talked to the kids about the ideas in our second meeting. I give them a few suggestions for activities within each category to kind of get them started, because like a lot of kids are like, what do you mean by like outreach and advocacy or reference and readers advisory? And then like within a matter of seconds, no joke, like their hands are going up and they're just like, what about this? What about this? And some of the ideas are like 100% you could never do it. You don't have enough space or money or staff power. As you know, if you've ever asked kids for ideas, but yeah. Anyway, okay. So in our brainstorming session that involves copious amounts of whiteboard marker ink, I'm also open and like listening for different categories that arise. So like I know I talked about like the categories that I want to make sure they hit, but like if there's something else that I haven't considered, just kind of like be like strategically listening for those, because the kids, like I said, they don't just generate ideas, but they can also generate like ways that you can move forward. Sorry, that's like a little bit like heady, but anyway. Okay. Like I said, it's a back and forth conversation. So in the past then, like we throw up all of these ideas onto the whiteboard or like the giant sticky notes or whatever. And then we kind of like whittle them down. We vote on them either via sticky notes, like you just put your sticky notes by ideas that you like, or the more like traditional model, like heads down, hands up voting. But there's a lot of different ways that you can approach this. And then, so with all of these ideas, we've done everything, like I said, from giant Harry Potter parties to like more passive book displays that helped parents and staff find read-alikes for tweens. So it's like it's just a display where it's like kids picture and it's like so-and-so likes this book. They think you like this one, and this one kind of thing. So book suggestions for tweens by tweens. We're currently filming, we did last year and then again this year, videos of tweens talking to each other about books called like Kids Corner, recommending new and upcoming books. And it gets pretty heated, like the battle between like Warriors and like Wings of Fire or Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings. Like, was Snape good? I don't know. The kids definitely have opinions on that one. So, yeah. Okay, so your level of engagement in this type of planning can range from a little bit to a lot depending on your comfort level and your organization's mission. Like I said, it doesn't have to be like a massive shift overnight. If you haven't planned this way before, maybe you can think of a small way that you can integrate it into what you're already doing. So do you have a program scheduled a couple months from now? How can you solicit the opinions of the kids you serve, even informally, to get fresh ideas? And I want to share this. My coworker, Jenny Liebig, went to the YALSA conference, Young Adult Services conference in Salt Lake City a while back. And it talks about like, okay, it's called Robert Hart's Ladder of Participation. And it's taken from his essay written in 1992 for UNICEF. 1992, it's like ancient, but it's finally in library land. Hooray. Called Children's Participation from Tokenism to Citizenship. So the essay itself articulates various levels of child participation in the civic sphere and like ways to move towards a model where kids are actually listened to, where their voices are valued, and where they have like power and agency, like equal to that of adults. So the concept of, and it's again, like similar to like the community-led libraries, but the concept of Hart's Ladder participation is taken from this essay, and it can be used as an evaluation tool, kind of for gauging young people's participation in your program. So like at the bottom level here, this is what we probably don't want. We definitely don't want. Manipulation, decoration, and tokenism. So like when you think about that, it's like kids holding signs for a cause that they don't know what they're holding the sign for, kind of thing. And he said, once we get to rung 6 of the ladder, 6 and up, like that's where we want to be. So where like adult initiated, shared direction, I would say that with our tween advisory right now, we're probably at 6, but there's always room for improvement. Child initiated and directed, child initiated, shared decisions with adults. So if you want to look that up and read it, it's a good read. It's not that long. So and it's freely available, PDF to download. So does anyone have any questions on that in terms of like structuring a year or like different ways that we kind of map that out?
So how often are your tween programming? Like,
yeah, sure. Oh yeah, the most obvious things. Okay, so we meet once a month, and I think that I found this week, and it's a 1 hour program. Jenny meets with her teen advisor. She meets once a month, but she goes for 90 minutes. I have found that, I think maybe in the future I would like to meet for 90 minutes, but once a month is kind of the sweet spot because every single time I ask for feedback, they say, we want to meet more often, except it's kind of hard to get different activities in, and I like to leave room because I know that they have a lot going on and the parents especially have a lot going on. So I want to leave room for like special meetings. So, and typically in a month we end up seeing each other twice because we'll have the official meeting, but then if we're planning a party or something, we'll meet again on like a Saturday or on another Wednesday, like from 4:30 to 5:30. So we generally, depending on like the activities that we have planned going on throughout the year, we generally see each other twice a month. But they're always like, we need a bigger room because we just have a small conference room in Meridian. They're like, and we need to meet more often.
Sky, I have a question. Do you have any children that have problems with transportation to your program, or is that just an expected part of being there? Yeah, so I haven't had any yet. It is kind of an expected part of being there, but that is something to consider. Like when we go on field trips and stuff, that is where a lot of parents say, hey, I'm not able to bring my kid. And that's where it's really helpful to be able to say like, hey, if you can't make it, if you can't see Brandon Mull or like help thank summer reading sponsor, the fun, like the really things, not just our meetings, but like, I don't want those kids to miss out. So then I'll end up, as long as the parents can like get them to the library, or like I have drop them off before, as long as it's not just me and the kid in the car. I always be cognizant of that. But yeah, I'm able to take a bunch of kids to offsite events. So,
yeah, that came up as a parent concern when we did focus groups with both the tween kids and then their parents.
Yeah.
We said, there's lots of options. We can't get kids there. So, it's always one of those considerations where it's like your library is very conveniently located and kids can bike. It's that suburban community, but rural and urban seem to have a much harder time getting kids where they needed to be.
100%. That's hard. And we're lucky to have a vehicle, although I'm trying to think like if we were in a rural setting and you had to like go all over to pick up these kids, but I mean, you just have to like prioritize that and then invest staff time in that. So yeah, it's fun. I'm so glad we have a vehicle and like are able to, but we ran into that with a program. We had a Mighty Girl Coder program where we got a grant from Google, and they wanted to make sure like it was accessible to everybody. So that's why we had to write those legal forms and stuff, because our programs manager, Megan, ended up driving kids around
all over the place.
Yeah, so a little shuttle service. So good question. Okay. All right, so I'm going to move on to communication with the kids, because this is, the kids and the parents really, like at this age, there are some kids that do have email and they're like, Miss Sky, you need to email my personal email. I'm like, okay, but like your parents are the ones bringing you here, so like make sure you loop both in. Again, like because you've collected the emails in the Google form, you just have kind of a built-in communication tool. I do use email primarily if it's like urgent, like we have to cancel a meeting or something because of a giant snowstorm. I have all their parents' emergency contacts and emails on that Google form, so I call them. I did try last year. I tried to set everybody up with Remind 101, which was good in theory, but not all the parents signed up for it. So it wasn't the kind of like the mass communication tool that I had hoped for. But it's worth another shot. So, because it would be nice to kind of just have like a little like conversation thread on your phone that you can just be like, hey guys, like don't forget, here's our meeting. But in all the research that I read before I started this, it's like the emphasis on like that personal communication to the group, even silly stuff where it's like, guess what, guy? And like, I'll just like send a picture of like all the advanced reader copies that I picked up at a conference, be like, guess what? In your next meeting, you get this, like to get them excited. And there's a question. Or a chat. Do you have group texts? No. Like Remind 101, is that what you're thinking? Or just like with the parents' phone numbers? I do have parents that like text me directly, but not group text. That would probably be a good way to do it. I should probably just ask the parents. Good call. See, we're all learning from each other.
Do the kids at this age have Facebook, or is that still, because I know like the private Facebook groups have worked well, but for older kids.
Right. Yeah, that's the tricky part with tweens.
Not all have phones and not all have Facebook.
Right. Yeah. So is your name Deanna? Deanna? Deanna. Okay, cool. Yeah. So there can be that gap between parents and kids. That's why on like the group Tween Advisory Council thing, like I make sure I include the parents and the kids. The kids will still get it, yes. But the parents also need to know. And then when I have to cancel meetings, it's the parents. We use GroupMe. Our youth leadership board. Okay. Is GroupMe kind of like a Remind 101 for a group text? Is it like an app or an app? Okay. Ooh, hold on. Let me write that down.
And it might be worth knowing if this is what I, as a parent, struggle with, is that every year teachers have a different app. And so I've now used Bloom, Remind, Class Dojo. Right. And I think if you knew if you're working with a particular school in general, like, is there one that parents are already using?
Right.
And then they don't have to download a whole new app. They just have to add you.
Yeah. That's precisely. That's how I felt. Like I felt a bit like, oh great, this is like one more school to like have to download and stuff. So Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, that's all as a parent. I'm like on my third or fourth one this year from like, depending on the group or the teacher. So
Right. Yeah, that'd be interesting to check.
Fairness for parents. And I always do, but.
Yeah. I wonder if there's one, so do you know, this is not obviously part of the presentation, but if the school district has like agreed upon, like, or is it every single teacher that does it differently?
As far as I know, because I'm in West Ada as well, and every teacher's had their own, I don't know if schools have maybe rules, but
Okay.
Yeah, every teacher I've had so far has had their own version, so.
That's good to know, though. And I mean, you do what works for your community. Yeah. It's your kids. So yeah. Okay. Awesome. I wrote that down. Thank you. Group me. Okay. Communication. Okay. I think we're past that one. Okay. Almost done. So just basically like a quick way to, oops, what did I do? Oops, there we go. Yeah, okay, so evaluating the program. So I have the kids themselves evaluate the program because I want their input. We use the formal surveys that our programs manager has created. They're the same ones that we give the adults. They love the fact that they're, again, being asked for their input in the same way that adults are. So they write it down. And then I use this method like the rose, thorns, bud. So roses, things you liked, thorns, things you didn't like, and bud are places where we can improve. And the kids have talked to me afterwards, like privately, and said they like this method because it is, they're anonymous. And then also it gives them time to think. So like a lot of times, like within the group settings, it's like, let us know what you know, that doesn't work for every kid. So trying to just find different ways of getting input for the different types of kids that are out there. It's the same with adults. I think not all meetings are set up to like, you know, bring out the best in like us introverts. So yeah, just finding different ways to get the feedback. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Quick rundown of the Tween Advisory Council. Do you guys have any questions? I'm happy to help. This is time for questions, or if you think of any later, feel free to email me. Oh, okay, question. Chat. Will this be archived?
Yes, so we've videotaped this, and then on the ION, the Idaho Out of School Network website, there's a spot that says webinars in our professional development dropdown, and that will have our recorded webinars, and you can find it there. Probably, and Emily can help me with this, in like the next week or so. Probably not tomorrow or by this week, but yes, it has been recorded and it will be available to view. Awesome. And everyone who joined in today will get a certificate from me in case you need training hours, or it is not currently Idaho Stars approved. However, we are an Idaho Stars approved trainer. So if you do need Idaho Stars training hours, which I doubt any of the librarians do, but just in case, we can get that for you. I would just need to know so I can get it into them. And then, but if you watch the archived version, you will not get a training certificate for that. That's just a video for you to watch. And then it looks, guys, there seems to be a question for you. That is not housekeeping.
Yeah, how much freedom do you give the kids? That's a great question. Okay, all right, I'll do my second. Do they run their own budget for a program, for example? I would like to get there. I know the Eagle Public Library does that, so definitely reach out to their Teen Advisory Council does. I was very impressed when she was sharing at like our Youth Services Network meeting what they do there with their teens. If you want to hit the top level of that ladder, like Eagle Public Library is doing that with their teens. So Brenda, I don't think it was Brenda though, it was somebody else, Brenda Pritchard. Anyway, their website will probably have all that information. But so I have never even formally been given a budget for the Tween Advisory Council, but that is something that I would like to work towards probably. But so yeah, no, if we had a budget, I would make them run it. Like I would say, look, if you want pizza this month, we're going to have to like have something a bit cheaper next month for like, yeah, for something as small as the snacks. And then also for like the larger Harry Potter programs as well. Also, did they plan programming / events for just peers? So they do, so like our Nerd Nations, they do for just peers, but then the Harry Potter programming, so that's like an all ages event. So they're planning for older kids, they're planning for younger kids, and they're very cognizant of the fact, like, they're like, okay, well, we need like coloring sheets or something for like, you know, families that come with like little kids. So as long as they're kind of given those parameters, then they're excellent. And then, okay, let me just jump back up to Maggie's. Some of the group expectations, such as attendance and commitment. Yeah, so I make it clear at the beginning of the year that, like, I need them there. Like, each week they need to contribute. They're part of this little community. And so I say attendance, you know, is required at all meetings. If there are some kids who, I haven't had this happen, but I would contemplate, like, if there are some kids who haven't been able to come for several weeks in a row, there are kids who weren't able, you know, to serve on the committee because their spot was being taken up by the one kid who's not showing up. So I would have that conversation with the parent. But group expectations, attendance, commitment. Yeah, so our second year, we also mapped out together group expectations for how we treat each other, because during our first, you know, you think that's a given, but not always. And it was especially necessary when we had a group of like 20 kids that second year, because, you know, they were talking over each other. They weren't being super respectful. So when Jenny and I were leading it, we're like, okay, like we need to have this brainstorm session. So we came up with rules together, and when they didn't follow those rules, not rules in like a heavy-handed sort of way, but, you know, like ways to like be, you know, treat your fellow neighbor in a good way. So yeah, group expectations. Did that kind of hit what you were asking for, Maggie, or maybe? And same with Deanne? Yeah, okay. Okay, awesome, thanks.
So we have a couple more minutes if anyone has anything else that they'd like to ask.
What have been your most like successful ones besides like your Harry Potter parties?
Yeah.
Like, what other?
I would say our Nerd Nations, like, so they haven't planned every single Nerd Nation. We have another staff who does that. But when they do, like, they have way more attendance, and I it's because, you know, they're invested. They tell their friends, they bring a friend, they're like, hey guys, we're gonna come with our side ponytails and like, you know, come to the event. So those are like our monthly themed age specific programs. I'm trying to think what else that they've done. I'm like scrolling through. We do, so a lot of programs, I mean, I say programs, those were probably like the biggest ones that they've put on for the community. There are a lot of other things that they have loved doing as a group. Like we did Rake Up Meridian, so we were out in the community kind of participating. They love that. They love thanking our summer reading volunteers. Like we just go with a little bag, thank the summer reading volunteers, and then afterwards you go to Fancy Freeze and get like curly fries and ice cream or something. So they don't have curly fries anymore. Wasn't that? Yeah, those are, but always Barnes and Noble. Like that, if you can like get a grant or something to like take that field trip out there. And if it's, I mean, if you're not in a library, if you're somewhere else, like go on a book shopping spree, because like they go bananas. Every year we present to the library board to like, again, show the board what they're doing, that they're active, but then also show the kids, you know, like you guys have made a difference and we value you. So like tell the library board what you've done. So it's always, my favorite thing was going to Barnes & Noble. Next kid. My favorite thing was going to Barnes & Noble. Next kid. Like, it's always the same. But yeah, if there's not a Barnes & Noble by you, like you can always do like online book ordering or whatever. Yeah.
All right. Any more questions for Sky? All right, then we will probably end up now, and then yeah, keep an eye out, and I will follow up an email for you guys. Sky, did you have a works cited at all that I could send out? We threw a bunch of articles out that
oh yeah,
that I might be able to attach back to them. That'd probably be nice.
Yes. Yeah.
I was waiting for like a slide or something, but I was like, no.
I like speed read all over all those. Yeah, I can send
Okay.
it.
Perfect. So I'll send that out to you guys as well as the your certificate, and then we'll archive this on the website, and hopefully you guys can join us again. We try to have at least one free training every month on our website that you can join in on. And anything else for me or Sky? No? Well, thank you guys for coming. We enjoyed having all of you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you guys so much. It was great. And look at that, you took up almost the whole hour.
Thanks, guys.
Have a great day.
Thank
Bye.
you.